Hi doll friends, this is Michael Canadas with the Carmel Doll Shop and the Grovian Doll Museum. Today is the day that we are filming our costume for the virtual doll convention, which is Victoria, based on Rose Percy's Christmas dress. I've had a lot of time to think about this getting ready up to this point, and I realized that I can't sew and film at the same time. Right now, Samantha is filming this, but when she puts the camera down, she's got to go back and edit more programs for the virtual convention. So I thought, how could I do this? And then I realized I'm going to do this just like I do sewing every day. So this is our beauty team. This is Leo and this is Jose. And those of you that come to our sewing workshops, you know them very, very well. They're here helping with this when we ever have our events and parties, but that's not their real job. Today we're going to take you into their real job and what I do. Now this project is based on Rose Percy's costume. So with that being said, we are using the sewing techniques that the little girls of Mrs. Ogden Hoffman's school used, and they used a machine. So we brought down our Opal, who's the oldest sewer that we have here. And unfortunately, Leo was going to show you Opal and work on Opal, but she blew a gasket, so she's not going to be able to work today. But Leo's going to do this machine sewing, and he's going to use my machine that I've had since I was 12 years old, and it was already old. And it does the perfect size stitches, the right stitches, almost indistinguishable from 1860s stitches. Jose's going to do the hand stitching, and he keeps me in line. Now sometimes we might argue, and you will have it on tape so that everybody can watch that. If you hear grunting and snorting and other little strange sounds, that's not us. There are bulldogs in the room. They're all around us. Occasionally you might see them. They're pushing us back here. So when you go to the site, carmelboutique.com, you will be able to print out this kit, which will be, that'll be the front page. It'll have all your pattern pieces. They'll all be there. The one special thing that it has, and we'll go over that again, is most people have never seen the back of Rose Percy's dresses. So this is exactly the way her dress looks in the back. Okay, so if you ordered our fabric, you've got it. You will need tarlatan. There'll be a list of things that you're going to need, and we're going to go through those all. So I think that the first thing we're going to do is go over the pattern pieces. And I think that we will be right back, and then I'm going to let Samantha go back into doing her work, and then I'm going to take over the camera, and then we're going to go through the pattern pieces. Bye-bye. When we started the project of Rose Percy's Christmas dress, Victoria, we wanted to get it as close to the original that we could, considering that the two dolls have totally different body styles. The new Here has a very, very short waist. Rose Percy has a very long waist. I'm going to give you an example of an original photograph of Rose Percy from 1864. And here you can see she has a very long waist. This is from our book, The Remarkable Rose Percy, Duty's Most Faithful Child. And you can see she has a very long waist. What you're not getting is that she has a false blouse that's very, very white, and in the photograph it doesn't show it. It just, the camera blows it out. You can see she has a long waist and a very, very bouffant skirt. And we, I think, pretty much recreated the bouffant skirt with our pattern. So Jose and I and Leo all kind of worked together to develop this pattern. When you look at the neckline, you'll think, oh, well, that doesn't it's a little loose around the neck. That we're going to take care of. And Jose, could you pull that little poof out in the front? Right here, this one here. Just pull that, no, the poof. No, this piece, yeah, just pull it out. When you make this, you're going to be doing this, 300 or 400 times, that little over poof. So this is our second prototype, because we don't make prototypes here. We go in, we make it the first time, and it works. But since other people are going to be making this that don't know our techniques, we had to do it a few times. The mock-up, which if you're feeling wiggly and you don't know if you should take on this project right away, do it in muslin first. We did line this with the tarlatan, which is an essential thing that you need to make this costume. All of Rose Percy's party dresses are lined with tarlatan. And Jose, could you show bring this tarlatan to us? So this is what tarlatan is. It's basically a very cheaply made muslin that's wide open, and it has all kinds of stiffeners in it. Today, the application, it's kind of hard to find. You can't find this at Joann's or in places like that, because it's used now for ball gowns. So it would be at your upper end stores, hard to get. So you really do need a good yard of that for this project. So we've developed the pattern. We think we've worked out all the kinks. So now we're going to start at the next phase. So I'm going to show you the pattern pieces, and we're going to move her out of the way. Leo, could you handle her for a minute? So here are the pattern pieces. You've cut them out, and you're going to have let's start at the front. So you're going to have two front pieces. You have one cut in tarlatan and a front over drape. If you look at them, you think, oh, that's never going to work, but we're going to show you how that works. Okay, then the next, show me the back. So you have a back, you cut two in tarlatan. Now the sleeves, I think, should be next. Okay, so the sleeves, you cut two and no lining. So that's, you just cut the two. Then you cut two cuffs. Where are the cuffs? There they are. There you cut the two cuffs. The next would be the arm cap. So you cut two in the material and then two in the lining. This is on the patterns, but I just want to go over this. And then you have the back tab. So let's show the back tab. This is the thing that everyone wants to see, because there really are no photographs except in this of what Rose Percy's clothes look like from the back. And then you have the tab bustle. Now, it's kind of not right to call that a bustle because it wasn't in fashion yet, but it kind of is a bustle. So we have the bustle tab, and then we have the actual belt. So we have laid this out in what they call today, it's a new term, fussy cut, meaning that we've centered the patterns onto the pattern pieces. Now, you can do whatever you want. If you don't want to center your patterns, you don't have to. You don't have to follow what we do. But I can tell you here that it won't pass the mustard here if things that we do are not lined up. Isn't that right, guys?
Yeah.
Everything has to be perfect. Or Jose, at one time I said to him, I'm quality control. And he said, no, you're quality controlling. So I think it's important for the overall look of your piece to have that done right. You're going to have enough material in your 1 yard to do all that. So we're going to be back in a second, and we're going to go on to the next thing that I think we should do, which I think is some of the hardest that you're going to have in this project. So we'll be right back. Okay, we have cut out the skirt following the instructions that will be in your pattern pieces. It is one piece. There isn't a gather or a joining. If you're using your own fabric, then you have to figure that out, but you have to make one continual piece. And you pin it to the tarlatan. Could you flip it over so we can see the tarlatan? And so that's the tarlatan. It's going to fill the whole space. So there's no, you need the yard of tarlatan to make this work. Okay, so that we're going to do that. Leo's going to go upstairs and use the machine, and he's going to sew this on the edge at 1/4 inch. Now, here's something important. Your cutting, your measurement is 9.5 inches in height, the skirt. But you cut it down on the end, and I never remember this, but Jose remembers.
Yes, I do.
So you go from the center, you create right in the center. So he's going to explain it to you.
Okay, this goes on a fold.
So
goes on a fold.
You fold it there. Mm-hmm.
Then your length should be 9 3/4 on the fold and on the
edge.
On the edge at the back. You have to have about 40 inches wide. Okay, so once you have your triangle made, 40 inches wide, 9 3/4, then here at the center you come down to make it 9.5.
So you're going to ease it from the center. You're cutting off from the center at 9.5, easing it out. I mean, we could probably figure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, by about 7. Don't you think about 7 of these?
Well, this is what I did. This is the part that it's been eased. Okay. So you had your triangle, right? 9 3/4. And then right here you mark from the bottom of the skirt, you mark 9.5. Right. There's your dot. At the back, you have to have 9 3/4. You mark your dot. Then with a ruler, you draw a line, and that'll give you the ease that you want.
Right. And this is very important because what does this happen when you do this, Jose?
Well, what this does is it'll give you, especially the longest part of the back, that will make it longer in the back because of the hips, right? You have to have it a little longer.
Yes.
So if you don't, it's going to look like it's pulling back.
Yes. And we've also, in our pattern piece, which let's find it. So if you notice that when the back piece and the front piece, the back piece is a little longer. And there's a reason, because that's going to give us a little more length in the back when we attach the skirt. So that's the reason for that. It's not a misprint. So Leo's going to go and sew the skirt and get it prepared for us. While Leo's getting the skirt ready for us, we are going to prepare the sleeves. Now, if you've ordered the fabric from us, we have, this is what you're going to be getting. It's a very beautiful material, but it's a little soft, and we want it to be very crispy. So we're going to treat it with Material Magic, and you want to do that, Jose? So we're going to give it one coat, and we're going to just give it a nice even squirt. Okay. All right. And so we're gonna cook it on, and it's got a really nice smell. And we don't use a steam iron, so that's a pretty hot iron. Remember, they didn't have steam irons in the 19th century. They either had used their stoves, or they didn't do it at all. And we're gonna do it until it's all dry. Just dry. And do you think that one coat's enough? What do you think?
I think so.
Okay. So we're going to just do one application. Sometimes I do more than one, sometimes I do 2. But I think this is going to work for us. And, this is a pretty poofy sleeve. Rose Percy's sleeves are not as bouffant as these, but as I said, she has a different body proportion than this Huret, but we're still doing accurate to 1864. And this is the lining material, or the cap lining material. This has to have a certain amount of bouffant too, so it needs to be treated. Now in our sample, first sample, we use some antique organdy, and it's really hard to find anything quite like that, so we've changed to this. So we're ready. Okay, so we don't waste time. We've got the sleeves prepared. Leo has got the first step of the sewing of the skirt done. You can smile, Leo, it won't kill you. Leo's one of the best people I've ever known on a machine, and this is just nothing for him to do. So he's got that done. Now Jose's going to come over and press it, and pressing is very important. So, okay, so you can see it's one continuous stream, and, oops, and the first step is the hem. So remember, when you do this step, you're doing the hem, not the top. So this is the skirt hem. So this is how we're pressing it. The seams are all going in the opposite direction. Okay. All right. And that looks really good. It looks like everything is just kind of right in line, so it's looking good. And now we're going to do the flip. We've got the flip, and we're going to just have a tiniest, oops, tiniest bit of overlap, just tiny, which is going to mean that you're going to have a little overlap on top, which is what we want. There's no definite measurement for this. You just kind of ease it in where it feels right. So this is I think it could get one more go over to have it nice and sharp. We're not using a mister. You look how beautiful the silk just comes right out. Now, the next stage is Leo's going to go upstairs, and he's going to sew this right on the edge. You can see that there's a line there. It's a natural line in the plaid. He'll sew that right there. He's going to sew it until about 3 inches here. He's going to start, he could either stop or start right here. So they're going to be 3 inches where there's going to be no sewing at the top. So we're going to let him go do that. We'll be back. So Leo's got the top stitched in. You can see that we've got a little overlap of our tarlatan. We're just going to cut that off. If we were doing a, oh, I forget what they're called, another kind of gather, we might leave that on. But since we're doing box pleats, we're going to cut this off. So it's all ready, and now we're going to do, I think, teach you a little bit of what I think is the toughest part of this whole costume. So we're just trimming off the top piece. We're not going to throw this out, by the way. This little piece will go in our little scrap box, and this will be used. We don't waste anything here. We're not cutting into the silk, we're just cutting off the top. We're using our good scissors, but we could have used our not so good scissors for the tarlatan because it's pretty rough. Okay, that's ready. So you've cut out the 4 strips and you've joined them together. You must have the back and the back. There are 4 channels for the back that say back. Those have to be on what we call the front and the back. They have to be on the ends. Then you have your box pleat that we've done in the print. That is a 1-inch square. Between the 1-inch squares are 10 separate units. So you'll be marking those off. But I think before you start on the fabric, you really should do a practice run in paper, because then it'll get your hands to remember how to do this. Now, Jose and I and Leo, we can do this without even having the template. But, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. So Jose is going to put it together. Okay, you're going to start in the center. There's the center. And you see those arrows? You fold. You fold on top. You fold. You fold. Okay, now put a, see that? Now we're going to put a staple in. Leo, could you hand Jose the staple? Now, if you're sewing this, I'll staple it at the top because I want to show how. Oh, no, at the top. Yeah, we'll take that out because it is actually a very interesting thing to see. Okay, so now you see the direction. There's the box pleat. There are the arrows. Now start folding it over. Okay, over again. All right, now delete. We're going to staple it at the top. No, let's do it right here. So we're going to staple it right there. Okay, same thing. Going the opposite direction. Over, over, and over. Okay, now we're going to staple it again. At the top, yeah. Okay, now we're going to do it. There's our box pleat. Oop, turn it the other way because people have to, thank you. Okay. We're so demanding here. We're asking people to work upside down. So, okay, you keep folding it. Folding it. And one more. And we've got them in. Okay, now we're going to staple that. Okay, now we're going to do 2 folds, just 2 folds here, and then we're going to leave it. Okay, now we're going to leave that because that's our wiggle room when we go to fit the costume. That is really the back. So we're going to leave those for now. We're not going to sew those in. So you're going to do that last. Okay? So now we're going to start on the other end because we've just gotten fold. 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 Okay, now, of course, if you were doing this with, you would use a pin to hold it in place, but since we're using paper, we've got to more. Okay, and now we're going to go the opposite way. Just follow the arrows. It follows the arrows. The arrows are every other box. Okay, so we've got that. I'm going to staple that down. Okay, we're going to do 2 more. And then we're going to leave it. Because we're going to leave those backs because we've got wiggle room. Now, Jose, could you move that staple? That would be... Sorry, it's not easy to do this and maneuver in. So we're going to remove the staple. Okay. Now, if you, Jose, lift that up so that they can see. You see what you've just done? You've created a beautiful box pleat. And so we're going to do this, and if you can do this in paper, you can do this on your costume. Now, I suggest that you have this, you do it just the way we did, and if you notice, it says box pleat, center, box pleat. It must line up like that. Now, you do not have to do the fussy cutting the way we have picked it. You can do it any way you want. If you wanted the other coloration, you can do that. But when I can see, well, I think it's just our putting the paper together. We're not quite lining up in certain places, but that's the paper, not. Now, that being said, when you do this in the fabric, and if you have your center centered, they will all be centered if you start at it the right way. So this is, I really, really highly recommend that you do it this first. Don't feel like you just have to jump into it and get right to the fabric, because this is lovely fabric and it would be terrible to have it, messed up. And you don't want to overwork it. So we're going to be back in a moment, and we're going to start actually marking out the real deal, the fabric. Okay, we're back. So we have assembled our template for the pleats. Now, if you notice what we've done, which makes this so much easier, is we have put our pattern pieces right onto the plan, right onto the fabric, pinned it on. So what we're going to do is when we go to mark it off, we're going to mark it off with a Frixion pin, which, Jose, could you grab the Frixion pin? This is a pin that you can mark fabrics with, and you iron it and it disappears. Now, that's not going to be a big deal for us, because whether it disappears or not, because where we're going to mark, it's never going to be seen by anyone. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we're going to mark right here on and create the centerpiece. And the centerpiece is 1.25 inches, which it's on your pattern pieces. So we're going to line that up. We're going to mark it from the top of the raw fabric to the sewing line. So you see Jose's done that there, and we're going to do it on the other side. And then we're going to mark again on the close to the raw edge a C, so that you remember center. Let's put the C on so that once we take it out of this to pleat it, so we've got a C. It's upside down, but it's a C. And then we're going to just start doing the lines. And then from there on, it's a 1/2 inch intervals. Going, 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 going. You see, it's in a place that it's not going to matter, because it's going to be going bye-bye. So then we're going to just put another one, but now we're going to put a B in the center. We'll put a B, which will stand for box. Okay, and then another. Now we're back to halves, 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 And then we're going to put a B there, and this is again an 1.25 inch box. Now you can see that we're out of alignment because the plaid isn't going to allow us to center the skirt where it needs to be. So that doesn't really matter as long as the center one is centered. And when this goes into the waistband, we're getting 40 inches of fabric into a very small waist. Back, back, back. We could literally keep going. We've got a little extra fabric, more fabric than we have. So we probably get 2 more of those 1/2 inches. We can only put so much on the paper for you, so you just keep going, and then that's good. Because we're going to need that because we've got some, and it doesn't matter if we've overmarked it. It's better to overmark it than undermark it. So we're going to go back from the center. Now we're going to go the opposite way. Okay. And then we're going to mark this one as a box. If you hear typing in the background, that's just David typing all the people that have questions about things that are in the boutique and the whatnot. And then we're going to do another box. It's important to differentiate the boxes for sure. Okay, and then we're going to go and you can see that we're a little wonky in our fabric, and that's because I chose to do the center pleat, which is right here, doing that as a, I wanted the center to have that same look. So I've made the decision to go a little wonky. This is not going to matter because there's going to be so much volume in the back that you're not going to see, well, volume everywhere. You're not going to see that there's a little more on one side than the other. Now, if you're a type A, then just cut it off because you have plenty of material for this doll. Now, that being said, this is not exaggerated or exuberant. This is of the period. Rose Percy's dresses are enormous in their volume. All right, so we're going to put the camera in another position and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're ready to do this. So we've marked it and then we've pinned it. We've discovered that the Frixon, just without us even putting it towards any heat, it starts to fade. So we've gone ahead and pinned our pleats where we're going to mark. So we're going to just start. So we're starting in the center. And so we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to pin it. Now we're going to go to the next box pleat and start there, right?
Yes.
Is that what we're doing?
This
okay.
is the box pleat.
So this is the box pleat.
Four pins.
You could go either way. You could go either side. There's no right side or wrong side. So we're going to go 1, 2. So that's done. That's 2. Now we're going to go to the other side of the box pleat. And we're going to go 1. Did I miss one?
There is, okay.
Let's start. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we're going to pin that. And then we're going to start at the next box, and we're going to go follow the arrows. You know, make sure your paper's out there with you when you're working. And we're going to go 1, 2. So it's a 3 and 2 movement to make this work. And then this is going to be 1, 2, and this is going to just be 2 because we're near the back, and so you can see it's happening. And now we're gonna turn and start at the other end. One, 2, 3, 'Pin it. We started our box, not the other ones. We're going to go 1, 2, okay, now we're going to do another box. We're going to go 1. Remember, these are 1/2-inch folds. 2, 3. And we started our next box. Remember, you start at the box. Don't try to just keep pleating. It will not. Well, it could work if you're a genius, but it'll make you crazy. So we're going to start at the box. 1, 2, so that's our 2. You know, you have to stop when you run out of fabric. You just there's nowhere for you to go.
There's no way they can do another one.
They can't do another one. Okay, and so we've got 1, 2, 3. And then we leave the end because those are our back pleats, which are not box pleats. Those are finishing off pleats. Now, Jose, hold it up. Now, that is a beautiful box pleats, classic Rose Percy, classic Cuirass. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have Leo come down, and Leo's going to stitch the top together. He's going to stitch it down, and he's going to we're going to make sure it's all pinned properly, and we're going to make sure it's absolutely pinned perfectly, because we do not want to lose, we don't want a lot of bulk, so we're going to just fix it just right. So we'll be back with that, and we'll show you it when it's completed. So we're back, and the box pleating has been sewn down. It looks really, really good. We've got our center, which is what I wanted. Jose, would you point out the center? Because I can't hold the camera, and do that. So we've got our center, and it looks the way I would like it to look, with that center stripe down the center. And you can see how beautifully it falls out. We're going to do some little gentle tugs to remove the pinholes that we created when we pinned it. We use very fine silk pins, but still it leaves a mark on the taffeta, and we'll just ease it out. They'll all come out. Now, the one thing I want to tell you is when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you catch all of the boxes. If you don't catch the boxes in when you're sewing it, go in by hand, pull them back up, put them into the folds. You've heard the saying, back in the folds, that's what that means. And that, because if you don't, if they're not all caught up, you'll have areas where your skirt will be wonky. It'll be longer, or it will just be wrong. So we're at a perfect place. We've got about 8 inches of pleating, so we're really good. So now we're going to move on to another thing, so we'll be back. Another thing that I want to point out is I'm loving how the hemline looks. This is totally up to you how you're going to use your fabric, but I just love that we've got this little red edge, and it's very, very consistent. So we're really happy about it, and you can see it stands on its own, just like Rose Percy's dresses do. So we're back. We are moving on from the skirt. We've set that aside. The next project that we're going to work on is we're going to start the bodice. Leo's up doing some of the preparation machine work that we need to do on the bodice. And he's putting the darts in, and we're doing that by machine in the tarlatan. That's what we're doing in the tarlatan. So Jose, while he's doing that, is going to work on the over drape. So if you can see on your pattern piece, from this corner to here, you gather. From here to here, you gather. Well, actually, it's all the way to the edge, so it's a continuous gather. This is part of the Rose Percy. These gathered fronts were things that they used on their play dresses when they were playing, and it was also used on quite a few of her party dresses. So I would imagine that this meant movement, so that she could dance the night away and be comfortable. So we're doing something in a small scale that the inspiration was from a doll that's on an epic scale. Now, that being said, this bodice has been elongated. It actually will fit on your dolls the top of her hips, because it didn't work, it didn't look right unless it was elongated. But you know what? They're enfantines. They're meant to be chubby little girls, although it doesn't make her look chubby. So Jose's going to start the preparation work for this part. So he's going to run fairly close to the edge, not right on the edge, some very small gathering stitches. So he's got the very small gathering stitches, and he's going to do them top and bottom. I mean, these aren't teeny, but they're not. Now, he's using his favorite needle that he likes to use, and I'm not going to argue with him about it, because he is an adult and he certainly knows what he's doing. The nice thing about working with plaids is you have all these fabulous lines to follow. So you really have to work hard at going out of alignment. Don't you agree, Jose?
Oh, definitely. Yep. You don't really need to have a measuring tape.
No, I mean, it's measured out for you.
Yep.
So it works. And I didn't always love plaids, but now I really do. I mean, they're so 19th century. And isn't this a great fabric to work with? This our new fabric. Don't you think it's great to work with?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is optional. They can do 2 rows or use 1. I would do 2 rows because if you're gonna sew this onto the tarlatan, then for better pleating, you would need, for better gathering, you would need 2 rows.
Let's do 2.
Okay.
And this is not going to show people, no matter what. I mean, if you're not the greatest hand sewer in the world, don't worry, because no one's going to see this. Now we're going to do some other things that you're going to have to really show some good workmanship. But this is inner works. And you know, we have coordinating fabric. We're not doing it in coordinating fabric because this is going to go away, and if for some reason it shows, we'll take it out.
And I'm leaving a long piece right here.
Yeah.
And we'll show you later why.
Yes. Okay, now we're going to do the bottom. Now remember, this is going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we are not going to be gathering in the seam allowance area. We're going to leave that so that that can be not cause bulk at the seam line. Not that it's really going to matter because this is, you know, a gathered over drape top. So did you figure about a 1/4 inch?
Yeah, that's a little more than a 1/4 inch, but
I think you could go a little. You could go a little more. And this is, you just don't want it to be, you're gathering to be in your seam line. So that's. And at the bottom, we definitely need 2 rows of gathering stitches, because this is a lot bigger space, and we want that kind of poofy over look. Miss Rose Percy's her bodice is very, very full and fluffy. Now, of course, it's been flattened down over the last almost 160 years now. She's not quite 160. I know her age because she's exactly 100 years older than I am. It's easy to remember. Okay, and there we go again. I'm so jealous. Jose can, with one hand, knot his threads. I couldn't do that. My life depended on it. This is one of, along with the box pleating, one of the most tricky parts of this. I mean, it's not that tricky, but this is where you're going to show a lot of style and elegance in draping. And I can guarantee you, once you've done it, you'll be fussing with it, making sure it's just laying just right. So we've gone just about a 1/4 inch, we've given a little more than that, but that's okay.
It's okay if the stitching is not perfectly straight. We will remove those after we sew it on the machine.
Exactly. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take, Leo snuck in behind us. He did the tarlatan. Now, if you don't want to use tarlatan, you can use regular lining material. But here's the thing: Rose Percy's clothes, the bodices are done with tarlatan. You could say that would be very itchy, But you know what? She has lots and lots of lingerie. So Jose's just easing the gathers in. He's just easing them in. You can see it's already billowing. So he's got his piece, and here's something important. Can you take the top off for just a second, Jose? Notice the darts are there. It doesn't really need darts, but it just gives the shape, it gives it a nice shape for the front. Do not put darts on the back. It will really mess up the whole thing. So the seam
should be facing down.
Yeah. So that's what she's going to have next to her body. Okay.
See the sewing stitches up? Then they go
right there.
Right side on right side.
Yeah. And then it's going to get flipped over.
I'm just pinning the shoulder part. That way they stay in place, and that way I know how much
to pull.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you match up your shoulder seams, and then you start easing it in. Easing it till you get to the corner of the neckline. Just ease it in. Keep pulling.
I think that's good.
Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to tie it off now?
Yes. There.
Okay, so now let's pin it down.
I will do another knot, just in case.
Yeah, so you don't want to break it. So now we're going to pin it. Make sure that we're going to make sure our gathers are evenly gathered. Are we having a pucker there at the corner?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got to correct that, because the shoulders tops, that has to be exactly perfect the way it would be. It can't be, you can't cover it with a gather. It has to be, oops. So make sure you get that really perfect. And then we're going to pin from,
before we do that, then we even out all the gathers, make it with a pin. You can just pull them from one side to another, make it look all even.
Can you turn it the other way? I think I can see it better that way. Okay, I think that I approve of that. So, okay, so now we've got it pinned really good. Now we're going to do the bottom. Same concept. Just work it, work it, work it. You're going out on my... Thank you. Okay, and the side seams is very important, that everything, the armholes have to line up perfectly. We can't fudge it there. So we're going to have a bad fit. Pull it, and that's basically it. We're going to pin it down very good. We're going to make sure that we don't have any poofs hanging over into the puffy part, so that it's not caught up wrong. So I think we're pretty good to go on to the next stage. We'll be back. Can you lay that down?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, So we're back. The next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna do the pleating for the decoration, the trim decoration. This costume requires how many yards of ribbon to do just the costume, Jose?
7.
7. Okay, no, 6. Isn't it
6.
6? And the 7th is for the headdress. So what we're gonna do is pleating. In our establishment, we don't use this little tool very often, and I've had this for at least 30 years. But most of us here, when we do pleating, we just sit and do it ourselves. Not everybody can do that. This is a very nice little tool. It's called I believe a perfect pleater. I've had it for at least 30 years. You can find them online. They're a little expensive, but you know, the thing is you can cut them in half and share them with your friends. Now, I have a secret that makes this work, and it's, and I'm gonna give the secret to Jose. It's my credit card. So what you do is use your credit card. This is something you have to do slowly. And you just ease it in. Try to keep it as straight as you can. As you go, try to keep it straight. Just weave it in. Just keep going. And I think that, you know, this is not Jose's speed. He's normally very, very fast at everything he does. But this is something that if you start to go too fast, it just pops out. So it's better to just take your time and just ease it in. I haven't had any popping out yet, so that's pretty good. We're almost at the end. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mist it. And this is a misting bottle. Let me show them. It's my favorite misting bottle. And can you show me the name of the brand? It's a Misty Notions misting spray bottle. And this is really great because it will only mist. You can't make it squirt or do weird things. So the iron's nice and hot. We're going to press it on it. And then, okay, we've got the first in. Now we're gonna just let it sit on the pleats until they dry. So let's put the iron on the pleats and just let them sit there and let it just cook it a minute. Just cook it.
Let's give it a shot. Okay.
Okay, so that's good. It was just enough. So what we're gonna do, this is something you do in between other things that you're doing. So that's just a small section. That's probably enough to do half of the little back streamer. So don't try to do this all at once. Do it, come back to it. It's a good thing to do in between. So we'll come back to this later. Bye-bye. So Leo has sewn our arm shoulder seams. He has done sewing with the machine around the neckline. So we're going to flip it, but first we've got some little homework to do. So what are you doing here now?
I'm clipping the corners so that when you turn it over, as you turn it over, it makes a smooth...
little sharpness, huh?
Yes.
Definition.
Definition.
We're not trimming it anywhere else, though.
No, don't pass the hemline, okay? Because if you do, then
Yeah,
you're gonna ruin it a little
You're
bit.
gonna ruin it. So remember, we've done it so that the darts are gonna be encased, and
I'm going to remove the hand stitching.
okay,
Might as well.
yeah, it's no use for it anymore, and this is a good time to do it. It should just pop right out. And I don't think there's any sewing holes, but if there were, it's not going to matter anyways because it's going to have a beautiful trim on it.
I'm going to trim this hem allowance here.
Yeah, because it's just kind of,
I'm sorry, seam allowance. Okay.
yeah.
Maybe a little bit over here too.
Tarlatan becomes kind of hairy. Yes.
Okay, now we start to flipping it over. Okay, now we have a corner here. I'm gonna use my pointer, and that will help you to sharpen the very edge, okay? And it'll look very beautiful.
And if you don't have a pointer, you can just, you've got a nice toothpick, it will work too. Just
Yes.
not too sharp. See, that's very sharp and nice.
Now the clip that we did in the back, I mean from the wrong side, is just to mark this corner right here
Yeah,
a little more smooth, okay?
It's very defined.
It's very important.
Yeah.
As I go, I'm gonna pin these sides just so that they stay in place.
Because now we're really starting to create the shape of the garment. Got a little movement in the armhole, but that's okay because
That's okay. It
there's
can be-
going to be so much in that armhole you won't believe it.
Yep. See how smooth that is?
Yeah.
There is no puckers here.
Yeah, that's just and that's people. That's just one little clip.
Okay, one last corner. Do it gently. If you do it
Too much.
too much, and you'll make a hole in it.
You blow through it. Mhm.
Yep.
Now we want the back to be a little longer. So don't feel like you've got to trim off that because we want that. You don't want your Puree when she's at the ball having her doing a twirl, having her petticoat show.
Now, we have a little kind of a problem here, but that's okay. It can be fixed, no problem.
But is it a problem, or do
no.
we just ease it in?
We just ease it in by doing a slight gather here.
But we've got to do that evenly on the other side, too.
Yes.
Yeah. And then have the most kind of below.
And that'll even out,
Yeah.
okay?
We want this ultimately to slightly hang over her belt. So if it billows, the more billow, the better.
It's almost like a peach in shape, you know, from the 1900s,
Yeah.
around 1900s,
Yeah,
but not
Not as big.
not as big. Yes, slightly
Pigeon breast.
pigeon first. Yes. Sorry.
And they did look like a pigeon, too. And this style, by the way, was for girls and ladies also wore it, too. A lot of people don't know that. Okay, so the next stage should be,
I'm going to trim the excess slightly. Don't do too much, okay? So just slightly, just to make it all even.
we like it to be very neat. We spend as much time sometimes on trimming the inside as we do the outside. But that's what we do.
Well, I think that's pretty good.
So the next step for this would be to get this basted, correct?
Yes, you can baste it or,
Just start sewing it.
yeah.
But shouldn't we do the sleeve next?
The sleeve is last, once we put these two together,
Okay,
okay, like so.
all right. And that we can do on the machine.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you're doing this for the first time, you should hand baste all of this. Don't follow us. But we've made 5 or 10,000 costumes in our time, so we could just go right to the sewing. So we're going to have Leo sew this up, and then we'll be back. While Leo's getting the bodice sewn together, we're not wasting any time, so we're moving on to the arm cap. So what this is a little over cap on the sleeve. So there is a right side and a wrong side, obviously. If you can look at the pattern piece, it's pointing up and down is the grain. The gathered part is the top. The other curvature part is the bottom. So what we're going to do is, you've got your pieces cut out already. You can cut this out in any way you want, but this is how we're going to do it on this piece. Now, if you bought your fabric from us, your lining will come with it. Now, this is going to be the same material that's used in your actual sleeve. So we're going to just pin it, get it ready for Leo. We're going to, oops. Yeah, see what's happened? We have a bulldog that's pushing his way around. You're going to leave an opening, and the opening should be at the top center, and it should be about 2.5 inches, 3 inches, whatever you're comfortable with, and that's going to be where you're going to be able to turn it inside out. So we're going to get that prepared, and then when he comes back with the other finished product, we'll have this ready. So while we're waiting for Leo to get the bodice for us to work on, we've got the back tabs prepared. So you're going to sew along 1/4 inch around with your lining material, and you're going to leave the opening at the top. So that's where you're going to leave the opening. And this you could do this by machine or hand, either way. It's perfectly acceptable to do it by machine. Rose Percy's was done by a machine. So we're going to give that off to him with the cap sleeves. We'll be back. So she's back. She's been sewn up. It's looking really good. The main thing that I'm worried about with this costume is that the cascade of fabric coming down looks good. It's even. The lines are going in the right direction. Here's another important thing, that the neckline looks good, even though that's going to be covered with 2 rows of things. Now remember too, what's different about our pattern than any other pattern that you've made for this doll is the bodice is longer. So this is not her waist here. This is her little tummy. So without the elongation, this costume doesn't work. So we're ready to move on the next thing, which is, what's the next thing, Jose?
Adding the skirt.
Are we going to do the skirt next or the sleeves?
We can do the sleeves.
What would you be doing if you were?
I would be pleating the sleeves.
Okay. Should we do the sleeves then?
Yes, we should.
Okay. But we can negotiate. Dude. What do you want to do? I think we should do the sleeves.
The sleeves, yes.
If they want me to do it, then I should do the sleeves. Okay, we'll be back. We're back. I just wanted to show you all a couple of our little helpers. This is Miss Annabelle. She doesn't really approve of show business, is not really interested in this or sewing. And that's Bixby's little Heiny there. So, but you know what? We got to get back to work. So we're going to go up and over, and we're going to look at some sleeves. Sleeves. So Jose, we're gonna do sleeves.
Yes, we're gonna do sleeves. Leo did the 2 top stitchings here because we're going to gather the bottom of the sleeves at the cuff.
These are our gathering stitches.
Gathering stitches,
So
2
we've got
lines.
2 lines. And that is at the cuff.
Yes.
Okay.
At the cuff.
At what would be the cuff.
Now we're going to pleat the top of the sleeves.
Now I should tell you all that how you pleat this, it doesn't really matter because it's not going to show. It's more important at the cuff than it is at the top because it's going to have a cap on it.
Yes.
So
They can choose to gather it too.
they could.
They
but I
could.
think it would be maybe
More puffy if
I think it'd be bulky
more broke. Oh,
to
okay.
get into the armhole.
Yeah.
So I think they have to
Pleat it.
pleat it.
Okay.
That's where you get the most volume of fabric into a
All right. So what I do here is I fold the sleeve on half, and by doing that, that gives me the exact center at the top. Okay. So
And you should have a center decoration. Is that right?
yes, if you get this fabric from
From us.
us, then you will have these lines here. Then this center line will be your
Center.
your center. Okay. So I would do 1 pleat over.
And that's within the lines.
This is going to be freehand,
Yeah.
and then
There's no plan.
there's no plan. I would do another one close to one another. Then I'm gonna do the same thing towards the other side.
So it's under and over. But you can do, people don't follow what we're doing exactly. You can do whatever works, but it should be even what you're doing. It should be even. So whatever you're doing on this side, you've got to do it on the other sleeve. And so you're gonna pleat it to all the way to the edge and leave a 1/4 of an inch, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna go the other side.
With those lines, you can really do a freehand.
And just make sure you line up the top,
Yeah.
from each pleat that you do.
Now this is a huge volume of fabric to get into this small space. Ideally, it would be beautiful to do a box pleating like we've done on the skirt, but it's really not necessary because it's not going to show. What's going to really be visible for the critical eye is the cuffs. And so now what we have to do is we have to fit that into the armhole. So we have to figure out is it going to fit?
I think it will.
Okay.
Yep, it sure will.
So what we're going to do next is we're going to sew that down. We're going to do the other one and then we'll sew it down and we'll be back. So we've done all the pleating. You've top stitched it
In place.
stitched it in place. Now I think we need to trim it a little bit, don't you?
Yes.
Because we've got some bulk there. So you're going to trim it a little bit. And we're not going to we're not going to cut those yet. You're going to cut those?
We don't need to gather this. It's
It's that
this is,
wrong string.
yes.
Threads, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was afraid that we were going to mess up the... You've cut 2 cuffs. Okay, now here is your pattern piece. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger than what we've cut. We have done this on purpose. If you're not using the new Hire, this can sometimes be an area where this is basically where the fit of the arm and the hand. So you need the room to get the hands through. We like our cuff a little bit snugger, so we've cut this down. No matter what, you use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So Jose's been over at the ironing board while I've been talking to you, and he's pressed down one edge, and he's done it, what, 1/4 inch?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's 1/4 inch. So he's pressed that. Now he's going to gather the cuff, the sleeve to the cuff. Let's just check that measurement. Is that 1/4 inch or it's just about. It's a little bit under, but this is not going to matter if it's okay. So now we're going to gather the cuff, which would be the.
You grab 2 of the threads from the top, okay? And
You start to ease.
I'm gonna knot this over here.
Tie those off.
Clip.
And if you hear a lot of heavy breathing, it's getting close to dinner time for the bowls. So you're going to just start easing it in, easing it. You don't pull it, you just gently ease it, because this is a lot of fabric. It's looking really good too. It's almost like ruched. Just keep easing it. Bixby, I hear you. Bixby. Sorry. Bixby has a little bit of kleptomania, so he likes to get stuff. He doesn't hurt anything, but he likes to walk around with it.
So that's almost just about the size that we want.
That's about the size we want, so I think we could tie it off.
Yes.
And you've left the space where there's no gatherings for the seam allowance, because we don't want under her arms bulk under. So he's tied that off. We're going to do that with the other, and we'll be back. So we're back with the cuffs, and so Jose, show what we've done. So we've taken the cuff, we've sewn it.
Sewn it on. And then
onto the gathers.
Yes, onto the gathers. They remember the side that we pressed. Then it's looking that way.
We flip that.
I'm gonna trim this off a little bit. Okay.
Trim that.
Like that.
Looks like a little chef's hat from my point of view. And then we're gonna just.
What we do next is...
This is a wonderful little trick, people, because it helps keep it from having, at the cuff, this big round ball.
Exactly.
If you don't do this trick, you'll have a big ball of bulk, and you don't want that. You want the armhole to be graceful. So we're going to do that.
Then this gets top stitched, which I already did.
Perfect.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to flip this out. No, excuse me. The next step to do
We
is
fold the cuff over, and then this we hand stitch.
right at the stitching line right here.
Right there. So
The
we're gonna
folded
flip
side.
that up.
Flip, yes. And of course,
Uh-oh, what are you doing?
oh, he's a toy. He's got a
Okay, it's a toy. People, it's a toy. You know, I don't yell at our dogs, except that they're bulldogs, and they don't pay attention to anything except for the loud volume. They don't get into things here, but they do.
You want to do tiny stitches on this, since the dolls have open fingers. And if you do long stitches, then
You'll catch them.
you'll catch them. You'll catch the fingers on the long
Oh,
stitches.
he's getting under the table.
He's grabbing his toy. Yes.
Okay, but I'm afraid you know how he pushes the table around.
Oh, yeah.
Lou, you're not going to like it if that table falls on you.
It's fine.
All of the bulldogs here are very toy orientated. If Annabelle's here, she will
She's looking this way because she knows you're talking about her.
she will correct them if they're doing things that are wrong.
She's the
Yeah,
mom.
you got a little bit. You can see under our display there. You can see Louis taking
Committed to
apart.
dismantling his toy.
Yeah, he's.
And remember, just out of patience, you have to have patience working on tiny stuff.
Oh yes, and
Right.
this isn't even that tiny for us.
Okay, we got that down, sewn down. So now we flip.
You flip it inside out.
Louis is eating the squeaker.
Oh, you're eating the squeaker. Okay, we'll be right back. He's eating the squeaker.
Okay.
We're back. We realize that Lou probably got a squeaker, and it's not the first one he's ever gotten, but they come out.
Okay, we flip the sleeve over. Now, this is what I always do when I'm working with calves on sleeves. I use my pointer and kind of pull a little bit,
and then
that'll even it out.
and then we'll press it at the end.
Yep.
But shall we fit it on the doll? Okay, so I think that's going to work pretty good, and then the next time we see you, we'll be setting in the sleeve. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the gathers. It needs to be pulled out here and there, but I think it will be great. Okay, we'll be back with setting in the sleeves.
Hi there. We continue on. We've already pleated the sleeves and we did the cuffs. Now what we're going to do,
We pressed them good too.
yes,
Okay.
we're going to add a piece of tape that you need 3 inches and a quarter. You're gonna fold the edge a little bit, like 1/4 of an inch. You are going to center it on the back of the sleeve,
The inside of
the inside of the sleeve.
yeah, from the top center.
like that.
To the inner cuff center top, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You see that it'll do that. Okay.
It's going to look like it's scrunched in. Now this is something that you would never get to see in one of Rose Percy's costumes. But this was a way to create those beautiful puffs. And they don't slide down when you have this. And originally for her, they were elasticized. But the elastic, as it ages, turns into basically tape. So that's what we have here.
You do a few stitches here and there, securing it in place.
And if you don't have access to this tape, you can find it in a lot of places, but we do have it in our Carmel Doll Shop Boutique. So you can find it. It's not expensive, but you have to have this in order to create.
Yeah, you have to do this process.
Costumes.
Yes. And we finish it off with a knot, maybe a couple of knots.
You could do this with a string if you were kind of desperate, but it's not going to give you the same effect as the tape. So now we need to turn it inside out, try it on the doll, and see how it looks. And I can hear David in the background. He's watching Cheryl Williams' program. Try not to get your thumbs caught in it. Now the point of this is you're going to measure this to your doll, and what it's going to do is it's going to help your sleeves stay puffy but not slip down. So we can fit this to the length of the piece that you're going to need is how much of this elbow joint you want to show. And we kind of want to have it right in there at the elbow. So if we have to adjust it later, we will. It's a really simple little process to do. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we've taped the sleeves. They're looking the way we want. And now we're going to do the next step on the sleeves before we insert the sleeves. So, what are we doing next?
So we're adding the lace to the cuff of the sleeves, and I have this beautiful lace here. We're going to do the wrong side to the right side of the cuff. I'm going to pin it.
Someone's alarm's going off. We're in a real place. So we're doing this now because you could do this at the very end, but this is just easier to do it now. There's less stress to the costume by doing it now, and it's actually easier because you're not flipping over the whole piece.
So now the edge gets folded in like so.
And that's at the seam?
Yes, at the seam. Then we use that pin and just pin it in place.
Now we're suggesting that everybody's got a little stash of lace. This is antique lace, and it is 1/2 inch wide, very lacy, but simple. We don't need an overabundance of lace. And we're also recommending that it not be gathered, just lay it flat.
Yes, okay, so now we start at the bottom, or at any place you feel comfortable with. Then you do invisible, tiny stitches.
Little mouse stitches. And if you hear grunting and snoring, the bulldogs are, they're in the studio. They're a lot calmer today than they were yesterday. And those of you that were worried about Louis eating the squeaker, he doesn't eat it. He pulls it out, chews it up, and then just leaves it. But they're very calm today because they went to the magic forest and had their little run. I've had to ask Jose to slow down because he's so fast I can barely get the camera to keep up. This is such a nice lace. If you wanted to, at the top, it almost has a channel that you could run something through it. Like you could run a green embroidery thread or a red embroidery thread in and out and make it very decorative. But we kind of want to stay simple. If we didn't have all the ribbon decorations going on it, we might consider that. Oops, see those hands are so fast, it's like, phew.
Okay, we're here at the end. We'll make a couple of knots. And clip.
Nice, that turned out really nice. Okay, we'll do the other and we will be back. So we're back. We've got the trim on the sleeves. They're looking the way we want. We should probably fix this. Drive me crazy. Her necklace is not right, but we're not dealing with the necklace right now. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set in the sleeves. And again, if you hear some snoring, that's little Bixby. I think I'll show you him. Is that little Bixby? You want to say hello to everybody? Okay, you look like you're mad, but he's just sleepy. Okay, so we're going to do it.
Okay,
so we'll take those sleeves off. It's important through this whole process, no matter what pattern you're using, whose pattern you're using, what class you're taking, you have to fit as you go along. Unless it's something that you've perfected in your manufacturing clothes, you have to do it.
Okay, we see the seam line here.
And
okay,
the inner sleeve.
The inner sleeve. Okay, we got that, and then we got the side seam of the back. So we'll flip this around. We will do this, the seam to seam, okay?
Okay. So
how you can really get it all even, then you pull it up a little bit, and then you can just match.
Just kind of ease it in.
Ease it in, and just pin it in place.
Now we haven't overcast these seams because we're trying to do this, not have you fall asleep while we're sewing, but we will be overcasting those, and you should. It gives strength to the garment and also gives it a nice look. And as I said earlier, sometimes we spend as much time here on the inners as we do the outers.
Okay, so we got it.
That's a perfect fit.
Perfect fit, yes.
Now, in your pattern piece, it will say pleating and gathering. So the little pleat, the pleating part is if you have to pleat it in to fit your armhole, you can do that. Because remember, this is going to have the over cap that's going to be the thing that, that you're going to see. You're not going to see the individual gathers. The most important part is that your gathers at the cuff be perfectly aligned.
So now we'll start basting. You can do slightly big stitches because you're going to use the sewing machine. You can also do it by hand.
They could do it by hand.
They can. Okay, so I'm going to baste it. Leo's going to sew the sleeves in. And
I mean, Leo is amazing because I couldn't manage the machine in that tiny little spot, but he could. He can and does. And I don't know how he does it. And he could even do it with old Opal here, the oldest sewer in the place. I mean, honestly, your basting is probably good enough for holding the sleeve in.
And I will do one nut. Okay, maybe two. Clip. Okay, so I'm gonna check. I'm gonna make sure it looks good. And see how the center pleats kind of matches the, yeah,
Shoulder seam.
the shoulder seam. And that's what you want, okay?
It looks really good. It does, almost like it doesn't need to be machine sewn, but we are going to do that. So we're going to get the other sleeve ready, and we will be back.